Here we are.
There we are.
Here we are.
All right,
Hey.
there you go.
Oh.
Congratulations.
Well,
So that is it. He has reached
Felice is
The speaker.
he has reached the margin, the 215 margin, with 5 members voting present. The threshold goes down from 218 to 215. And we have there Kevin McCarthy, Congressman Kevin McCarthy, the Republican first elected to the House of Representatives in 2006. He has been serving as a leader since then. He wins on the 15th ballot, becoming the 55th person to serve as Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives. 15 ballots. This is the longest process in 164 years, and the only time that it has lasted this long since the U.S. Civil War. McCarthy won ugly. He won by making concession after concession. He won in a process that was at times chaotic and angry and once almost downright violent. But the key word in this sentence is the word won. Kevin McCarthy won. He is now the Speaker of the House. It is history. It is maybe history for the wrong reasons for some folks, but it is history, Dana Beth.
It is. And, you know, one of his allies was texting me as it was going back and forth, and we saw the drama. And this person just said, keep your eye on the ball for him. And the ball is winning. And the ball is this moment. And the ball is becoming Speaker of the House. And the roller coaster, obviously, was quite tumultuous tonight. But think about the journey that he took and that he put himself on, particularly through the Trump years, in order to get to this moment.
Indeed. And, you know, I think the other thing I'm flashing back to is what Kevin McCarthy has been saying to reporters, which is it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Frankly, the night is finishing the way that they expected, but it did not go the way that they had expected when they walked on
That's his family.
to the House floor tonight.
Can I just say once more, this
McCarthy.
is 2 years since January 6th and what was going on in the House that day, and how many of these members were election deniers or voted to stop the peaceful transfer of power. We just have to
Including,
know. Including
the Speaker of the House, the new Speaker of the House.
Call the names of the members-elect who did not answer the first call of the roll.
I think they were waiting for, I think there was one Democrat that was out.
Vicente Gonzalez. Jeffries.
That's 212 for Jeffries, and we're
only
still
a
waiting
5
for Rosendale.
Rosendale.
Rosendale. Present.
There it is, present. So 6 present votes. All 6 of the rebels, the final holdouts, voted present, which lowered the threshold necessary for McCarthy. He didn't have to win. 218, 216 was just fine.
From a tactical perspective, this night is a huge victory for Kevin McCarthy. He had a strategy of grind it out, a strategy of divide and conquer, and ultimately that worked. I think now, even at this hour, it is important to look at the long term. The bigger picture here is that he is perhaps going to be the weakest speaker in modern history, beholden to a very, very, very small portion of his conference, a group of people who, as we saw tonight, he can't even really trust. So it's I think, a bittersweet moment for him, because I think they're going to be, as everyone wakes up tomorrow morning, what is this speakership going to look like? What is this majority going to look like? And what is the country going to be going through over the next few months as they have to govern?
And what did he promise them? We still don't know what the concessions were. What was Matt Gaetz promised in the end? And for his vote as well. We're going to be finding this out, not just in weeks, but down the road, what he promised them.
We were told at the beginning of the night that the vote on the rules package would proceed after the vote on the speakership. This was at a time that we thought it was only going to go to 14 ballots and was going to conclude an hour or so ago, and without anybody almost punching Matt Gaetz in the face. But we are here now, and I think we're being told that the rules package will be voted on Monday and not today. Is that right, Dana?
We believe so. I don't think it's definitely decided yet. But before that happens, we haven't seen Kevin McCarthy actually get the gavel.
Right.
We haven't seen the members of Congress actually sworn in.
Right.
You know, we've been here and we've been watching these series of 15 votes, including by members-elect, but they are still members-elect even at this moment. They have not been sworn in to officially become members of the House of Representatives.
Yeah. So there is still the official vote to be counted, to be called by the readers and by the clerk. And then, of course, the official swearing in of this Congress, after which we anticipate, although the good money's on not making any bets these days, we anticipate that there will be a motion to adjourn. John?
We may first hear, though, from Speaker McCarthy and the Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries.
Yes, I anticipate that as well. We did see Speaker McCarthy mouth the word finally just a few minutes ago. But America is about to hear a lot more from this man who is now third in line to the presidency. Marjorie Taylor Greene
Oh my!
Who was one of those members that was
kicked off committees. Kicked off her committees not long ago because of violent rhetoric that she had used against members of Congress, including Nancy Pelosi, and all sorts of things she had said that were anti-Semitic and racist and on and on. She is going to be a star
Now
in
snaps a
the
selfie.
in the McCarthy reign, having stood by his side during the entire time, even while her fellow MAGA caucus members caused lots of problems for him.
Well, she's a prime example of what we've seen happen this week. He has offered concessions, and people have given them their votes. He offered her a place on the Oversight Committee. She supported him through and through this. But I was going to say, she was also one of the liaisons helping facilitate the calls between former President Trump and members as that chaos was breaking out on the floor about half an hour ago.
Well, and the relationship, too, between them is also, you know, the side effect, one of the side effects of that picture that McCarthy went down and took with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. I mean, we were talking about in which order or who was helped the most by what unfolded that day.
But
But obviously,
in their tallies
listen
that
in.
the total number of votes cast is 428, of which the Honorable Kevin McCarthy of the state of California has received 216. The Honorable Hakeem Jeffries of the state of New York has received 212. With 6 recorded as present. Therefore, the Honorable Kevin McCarthy of the state of California, having received a majority of the votes cast, is duly elected Speaker of the House of Representatives